Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. Most famous people's love stories sound like they were made up to sell magazines. They're shiny, dramatic, and attention-grabbing. But if you look closer, there's often not much real stuff there. Their stories are about photo shoots, quick romances, and moments made to get people's attention. But Johnny Depp's story, or at least this special thing he said, feels totally different. It doesn't sound like it should be on a magazine cover. It sounds like it should be in someone's personal diary. It's not about fancy events, camera flashes, or perfect smiles. It's not about the perfect fairy tale that Hollywood tries so hard to sell. Instead, it's about something real, something human. Something that reminds you that even with all the fame, people like Johnny are looking for the same things we are. He once said that what really got his attention wasn't looks or charm or being famous, it was something else. He said he fell in love with her bravery, her passion, and her heart. Now, if you know about Johnny's life, you know that one thing he has never had is an easy time. His job has been one of the most famous in Hollywood, with characters that have become part of our culture. Captain Jack Sparrow, Edward Scissorhands, Willy Wonka, the list goes on. These parts made him a legend. But away from movies, his life has been anything but smooth. He's had moments of pure success, and he's had times when everything seemed to fall apart around him. Relationships that broke up in public. Court cases that made news around the world. Years where it seemed like he couldn't escape people judging him no matter what he did. And yet, through all of this thing he said shows us a side of Johnny that feels almost untouched by the mess. It's not the actor talking. It's not the rock star version of him. It's just the man, open, searching, and honest. Think about those three words again. Bravery, passion, heart. They sound simple, almost too simple, but if you think about them, you realize how important they are. They tell you about what Johnny thinks is most important in another person. They also give us a look into the things he's been searching for in his own life. These aren't things you find on the outside. They're the things you only see if you're looking deeper. And Johnny, as it turns out, has always been someone who looks deeper. Let's start with bravery. Johnny has often talked about how much he likes people who can stand up for themselves, and it makes sense when you think about the world he lives in. Hollywood is built on pressure. People bend. They give up things they believe. They hide their real selves just to be liked, just to keep their jobs safe. It's a business where staying quiet is safer than being honest, where how you look often matters more than what's true. But Johnny has never been the type to follow what everyone else does. Even when it hurt him, he stayed true to himself. That's why bravery matters so much to him. When he says he fell in love with her bravery, he's talking about being drawn to someone who doesn't break under that kind of weight. Someone who can look the storm in the eye and not fall down. For him, bravery isn't about big actions or fancy speeches. It's about bouncing back. It's about surviving without losing who you are. And if you look at his life, you can see why he needs that. Johnny knows what it's like to be doubted, to be judged, to be backed into a corner by the world. He knows what it's like to be pushed into a place where most people would give up. And yet, he's still here, still standing. So, of course, he would be drawn to someone who has that same strength. Someone whose bravery doesn't just impress him, but matches his own fight to stay true. Then comes passion. And this one feels almost like poetry when you think about Johnny. When he says passion, he isn't talking about anger, being reckless, or chaos. He's talking about caring deeply, that spark that you can feel in someone the moment they walk into a room, the kind of energy that makes them alive in ways that you can't fake. It might be their art, their beliefs, the way they love, or the way they chase their dreams. Whatever it is, it burns. And Johnny has always been drawn to people who burn in their own way. It's no surprise if you think about who Johnny is. He has that fire inside himself. You can see it when he's on stage, guitar in hand, putting his whole self into music. You can see it when he's making a movie, getting so deep into a character that you forget where Johnny ends and the character begins. That kind of passion is what keeps him going. And when he sees it in someone else, he's drawn to it because it speaks the same language his own heart speaks. Maybe in some way, he fell in love with seeing himself reflected in her. Someone who wasn't just living, but burning brightly, even when life tried to put out the flame. And then there's the heart. This is where his words become something much deeper than just a quick quote. Because Hollywood runs on surface-level attraction, it's built on looks, on status, on fancy events, and expensive clothes. People are celebrated for their image far more than for their truth. But when Johnny says that what captured him most was her heart, he's saying no to all of that. He's saying that the thing that mattered wasn't how she looked in photos or how other people saw her. It was who she really was when no one was watching. It was the late-night talks that went until morning. It was the quiet moments that didn't feel heavy, but safe. It was being able to be raw, messy, and open, and still beloved. That's the kind of connection Johnny wanted. Not something that looks good for cameras, but something that stays strong when the lights go out. Not admiration, but being truly seen. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all want, isn't it? To be loved, not for the mask we wear, but for the heart underneath. And that's what Johnny was reaching for. Now, of course, fans had plenty to say. Some thought this was Johnny finally giving them a look into why certain relationships in his life lasted longer, while others fell apart. Some guessed endlessly about who he was talking about. Was it someone from his past? Someone more recent? He never said it straight out, which only made people more curious. But maybe that's the point. Maybe he didn't want to make it about one person. Maybe this thing he said was bigger than that. Maybe it was his way of reminding us that the things we care about most in love are often the things no one else can see. And you know what makes this even more powerful? People close to Johnny have always said that he's drawn to real people. That even during the wildest years of his fame, he never really cared about keeping up an image the way Hollywood expected him to. He didn't care about being perfect for cameras. He wanted conversations that mattered. He wanted people who were real, even if they were messy, even if they were complicated. That's why bravery, passion, and heart weren't just words he threw out. They were like his compass, a way to tell what was real from what was fake. And in his world, surrounded by masks and fake things, that compass mattered more than anything. There's a quote of his that fits perfectly here. He once said, "My body is just a shell. What matters is the heart, the mind, and the soul. Without those, you're nothing but an empty frame." Now think about those words for a moment. On the surface, they sound simple, almost like poetry. But when you start breaking them apart, you see how much life, pain, and experience are packed inside. Johnny Depp isn't someone who uses words without thinking. For him to say that, to see himself and others not as appearances, not as physical shells, but as deeper beings made up of the heart, the mind, and the soul, that shows everything about the way he sees love, connection, and even surviving. Because when you live in Hollywood, appearances are everything. People are judged by how they look under flashing lights, by how well they smile for cameras, by how perfect they appear in magazine covers. Everything is surface. Everything is a show. And if you aren't careful, you get caught up in it. You start believing that beauty is the most important thing. That fame is what decides your worth. That news stories decide who you are. But Johnny's quote fights back against all of that. He's saying that the body, the face, the fame, it's all temporary. It's all breakable. What lasts? What carries you through storms? What keeps you alive in ways no one else can see are the invisible things, the heart, the mind, and the soul. Without them, he says, you're just an empty frame. And that's powerful, isn't it? Because an empty frame can look beautiful. It can be golden, shiny, hung on a wall where everyone likes it. But if there's nothing inside, if there's no picture, no depth, no story, it's just decoration. That's how Johnny sees the body without the soul. Pretty maybe, but empty, and empty things don't last. This connects directly to the way he sees love. For Johnny, love has never been about being perfect or about appearances. It's never been about the fairy tale that people expect. It's about depth. It's about bravery. It's about passion. It's about the heart that makes you who you are. Because beauty fades. No matter how good-looking someone is, time will change them. Fame comes and goes. One moment, you're at the top of the world. The next, you're forgotten or torn down. News stories disappear. Today's big story is tomorrow's trash. But the soul, the heart, the fire that stays, that's what keeps love alive long after everything else falls away. And if you think about Johnny's own life, you can see why he believes this so strongly. He's lived through the ups and downs of fame in ways most of us can only imagine. He went from being a teenager star to one of the most respected actors of his time. He's been worshipped by fans, criticized by the media, cheered for his art, and made fun of for his mistakes. He's seen both sides of the spotlight, the blinding glory and the crushing weight. And through all of it, he's learned something that most people never get to learn until much later in life, that all of that outside stuff doesn't really matter. It can disappear in a second. What matters, the only thing that lasts, are the parts of you that no one can take away. Your heart, the way you love, your mind, the way you think, dream, create, and your soul, the part of you that stays true even when the world tries to break you. That's why he says the body is just a shell. It's not that it doesn't matter at all. It's just that it's not the main thing. It's not the truth. It's the wrapping, not the gift inside. Now, let's connect that back to love. When Johnny said that what drew him in wasn't beauty, wasn't charm, wasn't even fame, but her bravery, her passion, and her heart, he was really putting this way of thinking into action. He was saying, I don't care about the shell. I care about what's inside, because that's what lasts. That's what survives storms. That's what makes love worth holding on to. And if you think about it, it makes so much sense. If you build love only on looks, what happens when those looks change? If you build it only on status, what happens when the fame fades? But if you build it on bravery, on passion, on heart, then you have something that time can't destroy, something that grows stronger the longer it lasts. And maybe that's why his words hit people so deeply. Because deep down, we all know it's true. We all chase after the shiny things, the beauty, the attention, the approval. But what we really want is to be seen for who we are when the mask comes off. To be loved for our heart, not our appearance, for our passion, not our image, for our soul, not our shell. And Johnny, in his own way, reminded us of that truth. But here's the thing. Living by that truth isn't easy, especially not for someone like Johnny Depp. Because when you're famous, when the world is constantly judging you, when every move you make is photographed, it's hard to find people who see past the shell. Most people are drawn to the surface. They're drawn to the star, the money, the image. Finding someone who looks past all of that and sees the man, the messed up human, weak man, that's rare. That's almost impossible. Which is why when Johnny found it, he held onto it. And when he spoke about it, it wasn't just a casual comment. It was a confession, a look into what really matters to him. Think for a second about how this connects to his movie parts. Johnny has always been drawn to characters who are misunderstood, outsiders. People judged by how they look, but defined by what's inside. Edward Scissorhands, a gentle soul trapped in a body that made people fear him. Captain Jack Sparrow, a tricky pirate who seemed crazy but had wit, heart, and loyalty deep down. Even Willy Wonka, weird on the outside, but shaped by loneliness and imagination. In every part, he found a way to show that the shell wasn't the truth, that what mattered was the heart, the mind, the soul inside. Maybe that's because he's always felt the same way about himself. And that brings us back to the quote, "My body is just a shell." What matters is the heart, the mind, and the soul. That's not just a way of thinking for Johnny. That's survival. That's how he's managed to keep going even when the world tried to tear him down. Because when you stop depending on the shell, when you realize that the outside can be broken but the inside is yours, you stop being breakable. You stop being just a frame. You become whole. And that's what love needs too. Wholeness, depth, substance. So when Johnny says that beauty fades, fame comes and goes, News stories disappear, but the soul, the heart, the fire that stays. He's speaking from experience. He's saying, I've lived long, enough to know what lasts. I've lost the things that weren't real, and I've held on to the things that were. I've seen my name go up and down in news stories. I've seen my face on magazines. I've seen the cheers and the boos. But at the end of the day, none of that defined me. What defined me was the fire I kept alive inside. What saved me was the bravery I refused to let go of. What carried me through was the heart that no one could take away. And that's why his confession about falling in love with her bravery, her passion, and her heart isn't just a romantic line. It's his truth. It's how he measures everything. It's their reminder that love, real love, is about seeing past the shell and choosing the soul. And maybe that's why when we hearth those words, we don't just think about Johnny Depp. We think about ourselves. We think about the people we've loved or the people we've lost. We think about the times we got caught up in the surface and forgot to look deeper. And we think about what we really want, not just to be liked, but to be seen. Not just to be noticed, but to be known. And isn't that what we're all searching for? Someone who will look past the shell and say, I see your heart. I see your fire. I see your soul. And that's what I love. And maybe that's why if you look at Johnny today, you'll notice a change. He seems calmer, quieter, more protective of himself. He's not chasing news stories anymore. He's not trying to prove anything to anyone. It's almost as if he's realized that the world has had enough of his private life, and now what's left belongs to him. And maybe that peace comes from finally holding on to the things that matter most. Maybe he's realized that true love isn't about appearances, or popularity, or image. It's about the bravery to stand firm, the passion to stay alive inside, and the heart that makes everything real. And maybe that's why this confession hit so hard with people. Because it wasn't just about him. It was about us. It was about what we want when all the noise fades away. We all chase after things that shine. But deep down, we know that what really matters isn't always visible. It's the bravery we like in others, the passion that inspires us, the heart that makes us feel connected. Johnny's confession wasn't a Hollywood fairy tale. It was a reminder of something we already knew, but sometimes forget that love lives in the unseen.